Welcome to the Lodge. You've accessed
The Lodgecast Experience.
warning, warning, dangerous spoilers ahead. Enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of the Lodgecast. I am your Lodge Master, and with me, as always, Brother Bishke.
Hey!
And Brother Lucas.
Good evening.
And tonight, we're doing what we said we'd never do again, which is a VOD experience. We are in the Lodge, and we are going to give Lucas another shot at just watching a fucking movie without falling asleep or threatening to leave.
And keeping it mute. We gotta keep it mute, guys.
I actually promise not only to stay conscious and alert for the duration of this film, but I know without even knowing that it's going to be better than the last one because Alexander Skarsgård is not in it, and instead a very thickly bearded Jim Carrey is the lead. So that's going to be the beacon of light, the lighthouse keeping me to shore.
Yeah, but what about this hash joint we've already smoked?
No. I swear to you,
swear.
Because Alexander Skarsgård not talking is just as boring as Jim Carrey's beard not doing anything.
You're referencing Mute, our previous.
That was the last
experience.
VOD. That was our only
was
VOD.
ugly.
But I feel like this will be way more intense and engaging on a couple levels.
Have you guys? I have not read. All I've seen is the trailer and the poster. I have not read any reaction.
I'm just like, wow.
Same.
Jim Carrey, the biggest star, the biggest box office star of 1995, is VOD.
I didn't know this movie existed till about a month ago, like 2 weeks ago, like very recently, where I either saw online or someone sent me the trailer,
Right.
and I was watching it and I was thinking, this is a comedy? But then I'm like, no. Well, no, like the death of Stalin, or,
Sure,
like
sure.
I thought maybe it was some deadpan shit.
No,
like
he's
Pierre.
pretty grim. This movie looks
This
pretty
movie
fucking
is
grim.
very number 23, like straight-laced, like the majestic.
And I think he's got like a
meth.
Polish accent in it or something, like thick.
Yeah, I couldn't tell from the trailer.
I couldn't tell, but
He's grumbly. He's serious.
Yeah.
There are some dark crimes afoot. Did we say that the movie tonight is dark crimes? By the way,
No, we didn't.
Have I said that? Have I invoked it
Not
yet?
happy good crimes or light crimes.
These are dark Polish crimes.
Dark crimes, man.
Who's our female lead?
No clue.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought there was another
Probably
star
some
in it.
Nordic, Scandinavian.
Okay. I'm very curious to see Jim's state of mind. I really enjoyed Jim and Andy, the Netflix documentary.
I'm sure you did.
And I just
Given the provocateur that you are, you're like an angel to that devil.
Yeah,
you know, like you're all about love with your provocations, but God, he was evil back then.
Well, I
Evil.
mean, no. I mean, he was out of his mind. Like and now he's even more out of his mind. And so
He's making great art, though.
For sure
Check
he
out
is.
his Twitter feed.
check out his Twitter feed.
He
but
truly is an artist, like in the literal sense.
Yeah.
Like he has demons. Like I know,
He
I
may
know
or may
his,
not have killed his girlfriend.
I know his backstory. We all know what he's experienced.
yeah, the old magic
and-
is gone. Dumb and Dumber 2 was not
and-
good.
Right, I agree. But the bottom line, though, is like he is truly, to me, like a living legend.
Sure.
And if I ever bumped into him on a city street, you better believe I'd be starstruck and stuttering. Like, there's just no way. Like, this guy, I mean, here, for instance, like... Yeah, Liar, 97. For all intents and purposes...
You guys should see the beautiful, nostalgic look on Lucas's face right now.
80s, 90s high concept that should not have worked. And if you try to picture, like, let's say Harrison Ford...
He's the keystone.
Or like another actor, like, yeah, you could watch it, but it would be weird. It would not.
It had to be Jim.
It was something about Jim that just made it like
Any
funny. Like,
especially male that is in our age demographic owes a shit ton to Jim Carrey.
I love the Cable Guy. I fucking love it. Cable Guy to me
great.
is 4 bones. Like,
Yeah.
so that's where I'm coming from. So for me to see him do dark stuff is interesting. However, when I started in this business, the number 23 had just come out, or maybe
Future
I
launch
forget
movie,
the
by
year.
the
I should
way.
know the year. I think it was 07.
Yes.
And it kind of effectively killed Jim Carrey's box office like career. After that,
Yeah.
like there were no more sequels or like remakes or whatever until I guess Dumb and Dumber 2. But like
The number
but
23 was...
people were like, oh shit, like fuck.
That
this,
was
like,
one of the
what-
first movie dates between me and the Lodge Mistress.
Ooh,
And,
wow! The Lady of the Lodge
our-
had to see that.
Our,
Wow.
Her reaction to it, her constantly looking around and adding things up to reach the number 23 afterwards was
Oh wow, that's amazing.
that was great.
That's very special.
I-
That's when you know. Yeah, that's
I
when you
fell
know
in
she's
love.
the one.
I fell in love all over again that night.
I know that feeling.
But number 23, don't watch it. That's coming to the Lodge like season 7 or something.
Okay.
So, but dark crimes, guys. I have no idea.
So yeah, so
I have
let me
no
ask,
idea what we're
let me
getting
ask you
into.
two gentlemen a question. How do you think Jim Carrey got involved in this project? Do you think someone made him an offer? Do you think this is something he's always wanted to do? Like how does something like this gestate or like initiate?
I mean, he seems to be going kind of the Robin Williams route, in my opinion. Like, Robin kept getting a little darker and a little darker as the years waned on, and I'm very interested to see how...
That might just be where his head's at right
Yeah,
now.
it might just be where his head's at. He wants to be somewhat villainous. I think he's the detective, but he looks villainous.
He may or may not be the one committing the titular dark crimes. We know so little about it that we just got to dive in.
Watch this. DirecTV, right?
It is free on DirecTV. I hit a button next to dark crimes, and I think we have it. So we're going to press play and hope it comes up. And we're going to come back and describe the darkness of the crimes that we witness.
dark crimes.
Alrighty then.
We witnessed some dark crimes occur.
Oof.
It was very dark.
Very, very dark.
Very dark.
Very dark and Polish crimes. Right off the bat, Lucas said, "Look at that runtime. I like this movie already."
90 minutes.
It was 90 minutes.
That's like 3 episodes of TV.
You would think this movie would have been a lot longer considering its themes and its look and its mood, but it was 90 minutes. And as we all know in the Lodge, whenever Lucas starts out pumped for any reason, the movie is probably doomed. So, what was your guys' first reactions? We get into this world. I mean, a salad dragon scene is when something so fucked up or misguided or just plain crazy happens that we instantly know.
But it shines. It's a
It
bright.
shines
It's a
through the
bright.
darkness.
It's a bright. Yeah, moment.
That's when we
it's the
know
peak
we know we're on the
Lodge
right
moment,
track.
yeah.
Even if a lot of these movies aren't Lodge movies, these shining moments are the Lodge moments. I thought the very first series of shots was going to be
Yeah,
the salad.
the opening credits was Salad Dragon all the way.
I felt the same way when I saw the title come up. The 3 words that came into my mind after the other words were drab, dreary, destitute student film production. Like,
Yeah.
it was like boom, 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 and I was like,
was Salad
oh.
Dragon in those words?
Not yet. No,
Okay.
to me, I thought the Salad Dragon came later, but then
Yeah,
it
yeah,
really
yeah.
didn't come till later. But no, in the
But-
first opening,
Yeah,
like
describe
two minutes,
what you see.
It's a poor man's Eyes Wide Shut orgy sequence, but much more violent and rougher.
It's like Hostel meets 8mm.
Yeah,
meets
it's totally
Eyes
Hostel.
Wide
It's
Shut.
Hostel meets 8mm meets Eyes Wide Shut, and but just the way it's shot is like soft and flat, and it's like video. It's like it's like HD video, but it looks like video. Like there's nothing cinematic about it at all. And it makes it look cheap. It just makes it look super threadbare, like a telenovela. So like right off the bat, you're like, oh.
I was not as discouraged as Mr. Lucas here. I thought we were in for a treat because they're trying to push our buttons right away, and then you see the words Jim Carrey, and then you cut to a hog-tied woman getting whipped, and you're like, oh, okay, what world, what universe are we in right now? I thought he was going to be going into the Polish underground of sex clubs, and we were going to see Jim Carrey with some crazy Polish industrial music and strobe lights.
No, it was encouraging. I was
Contain yourself.
I was ready for the underworld. I was ready to dive deeper and deeper, but that's about as deep as we went
Yeah.
in the first 2 minutes is about
Yeah.
as deep as we went into the sex dungeon world.
Yeah.
I also knew I was in a bad part of town when, in the very opening, it establishes Jim Carrey is playing not only a Polish detective, but a married father of like a young preteen or teenage girl.
Yeah.
And there's an opening scene. It's like this very classic Polish, like tense, terse family breakfast where no one's speaking to each other.
Great scene.
And Jim Carrey's character is like very OCD, meticulous about how he cuts his sunny side up eggs and moves his bacon around. And I was just thinking like, oh man, like it's one of these
This
movies.
is formally rigid.
Very flat and like and belabored and just inert.
Now listen, folks. It's not all doom and gloom. At this point, you're buzzing from the titillation at the beginning. Seeing Jim Carrey with a full gray beard.
And they acknowledge the beard. I think one of the opening shots is him cleaning the beard.
The first shot of him is his beard being groomed.
Yes.
Yeah.
He wears like a mock turtleneck
Like
and
Phantom
blazer
Thread.
combo that's really sharp. And he's speaking in this bizarre Polish accent.
With a straight face.
That sounds like Sean Connery. And then throughout the course of the movie, it veers wildly Irish. And then it kind of settles in like Liverpudlian territory.
Yeah.
So
And then he breaks it every one, like when Tom Hanks breaks Forrest Gump's thing when he starts yelling. Like when Jim Carrey's yelling,
it's just pure Carrey.
it's Jim.
Yeah.
And that's when you see the old Jim, just a glimmer there.
Yeah, so I was with it for a little while here. I do think the first sequence of shots of this sex club called the Cage, which looks like a prison, it reminded me of Nocturnal Animals. I don't know if you guys saw that, but the opening credits are like slow motion of like obese women stripping, and it sets up a movie that's entirely different from what you end up getting. So that's what happened here, unfortunately.
Yeah, because the opening shots are very, very extreme. Like, just to describe some of them, you've got a full frontal nude woman, hanging from a hook with her arms, bound above her. You got another one tied to a chair while a guy is taking shots at her, with a shooting range, almost.
It's fucked up. It's like these are dark crimes being committed.
Yeah, the darkest of the dark.
And then Jim's investigating. And
He's already like putting someone under surveillance. Like at
He's
first
an
I
investigator.
thought it was his ex-wife. At first I thought, oh, he's showing there's like a bad divorce. He's like checking up on the mistress or ex-girlfriend. But no, it turns into something more than that.
Before we get too far into it, let's do the official synopsis so you guys have a toehold into this dark world. Brother Bishke, what do you got?
Dark Crimes. Synopsis. Tarak is a detective who takes on a case involving the murder of a businessman. To his and everyone's surprise, the case is identical to a character's murder in a recently published novel by a man named Kozlo. While the crime appears to be an open and shut case, Tarek discovers a darker secret.
So, yeah, he's investigating this death of this businessman that died at one of these sex parties, at this sex
At the
club.
cage.
At the cage. You start to see Jim, his former roles in the. You can't help it. Like
Yeah.
when he's
Yeah.
watching video of these sex crimes,
And they're very analog. It's very like it's all VHS, which is
yeah.
kind of odd.
When he's watching the video, I couldn't help but think of him like watching Dolphins footage and like Ace Ventura. Because
yes.
if he's like somewhat tickled by something, he'll get a little gleam in his eye, and you'll be like, "Oh, there's that old Jim." But this is definitely different territory for him.
Yeah, he's off the deep end here. I mean, this definitely feels like way outside his comfort zone, and I feel Jim Carrey is known for one thing, and that one thing is just energy. Like he's a very high-strung, energetic guy, very much like a young Robin Williams, and that's what we kind of love and are drawn to.
And we don't get that here.
So it's like you're utilizing Jim Carrey incorrectly or differently. Like
Maybe Jim wanted that. Maybe I think Jim
I'm sure
shows
that's what he
it's
wanted.
it's
shows
what
this
people would call
project.
inspired casting, except here to me, like for me, this would have only worked if it was like Quentin Tarantino adapting an Elmore Leonard novel and Jim Carrey was playing it like Fletch, where he's half serious, half sardonic or sarcastic, but there are stakes and it's gritty and it's violent, and then you're like, wow, I'm invested in this. But we're here. First of all, Carrey can't make you. He can't convince you that he's Polish, right? So
No.
the fact that he's Polish and this whole movie's in Poland, but everyone's speaking English is the biggest fucking head scratcher. It's like maybe like Jim's coke dealer was like, "I'm making this movie, Jim. Like, you'd be perfect for it."
It was
like,
Brett Ratner.
You play. Oh yeah, it was Brett
Ratner.
Ratner. Oh man,
First
like,
thing
it's
you
just,
see is Rat
It's just
Pack.
like, how did this movie get initiated? Like, why did he say yes to this? Like, I don't see any upside for him as a performer.
It
Like,
might be like a money laundering thing.
he's taking a risk on the director or the material, but or his co-star, but like none of it was worth it. Like, it was so
Well, okay, but
sophomoric.
there are nutrients to be gleaned within the dark underworld, though. I did like. There's one joke that he tells, and it's not even really a joke, but it's the funniest thing intentionally that he does. It's when he brings in this writer who seems to know a lot about the crime, kind of like a Basic Instinct, and he's this outsized personality, and he's interrogating this writer, and he asks the writer about the murder victim, like how he knew him, and the writer's like, he was blonde, big cock, and then Carrey says, "How long?" And then he gets a twinkle in his eye. "Had you known him?" So it's like a long cock joke, and he gets that little twinkle in his eye where it's like, I'm gonna give you a little tease of
Might have been
comedy.
improvised. Might have been.
Yeah, probably was.
Yeah, Jim had to get one joke in the whole movie.
But this
That's it.
movie, I feel, is written by an American, Jeremy Brock, even though it was produced and directed by a Polish film company. But it felt like, yeah, you say Basic Instinct with that interrogation scene, absolutely. I even take it to Blue Velvet when later Jim is like being a voyeur, watching people have violent, passionate sex.
Mm-hmm.
There were all these like, threads. But I just thought, if you take Jim Carrey out of this equation, you put like a no-name actor, what do you got? Like, what do you got? Or even Charlotte Gainsbourg.
The
holy
movie
shit.
really, it survives, if it survives at all, coasting on the fact that Jim fucking Carrey is a Polish detective with
a beard,
with a beard,
and a Polish wife who's bitter that he's obsessed with his job relentlessly and like ignores his family.
I knew we were in trouble, also because his performance is very much like Sarsgaard in Mute.
In Mute. No. And to what the Lodge Master was saying earlier, when I found out the movie was 90 minutes, I perked up and got excited because I thought, okay, even if it's painful, it'll be relatively over quick and easy. But as it started and the shots were like so drawn out of him cutting his eggs and driving out of his driveway,
It was very Mute.
and driving down the street and
drab.
looking out his
All the
window
colors are so
and
drab.
going and Lodge Master was like, wow, I'm glad Poland's a beautiful filming location because it looks just bleak. It's just concrete
it's
and
bad.
overcast. And like 30 minutes in, I was nodding out. I had to stand up for a minute, to get the circulation back.
Lucas was in trouble.
It was a void.
Pretty much from the get-go.
A void of entertainment.
We had to remind him about the oath that he made to you people.
And the case that he's investigating, like they don't even really sell the guy's death, the businessman's death. It doesn't work dramatically to any of the other characters that we know of, and it's like, why do we give a fuck? And the guy's name, what was his name? He kept looking.
Christoph.
Christopher Spear.
Sadovsky.
Sadovsky. You hear Sadovsky as much as you hear that other kid's name in Wrinkle in Time.
Charles Wallace.
Charles Wallace and Sadovsky. We should write a movie about this.
It's the drinking game. Whenever Jim Carrey says Sadovsky, again, there's nutrients in here, folks. He listens to this audiobook by this writer obsessively. He's driving around, he's listening to it all the time.
For like 10 or 15 minutes.
And there's some great
time.
nuggets. My favorite was the writer's describing the sex club, and he says, "To hear a girl screaming was like the sound of shopping mall music, the sound of buying and selling." That was right when you said I may have to stand up to watch this one.
And yeah, and what you just heard him read would be like in a scene where Jim Carrey's having breakfast with his wife, and you think it's a joke. You think like, oh, he's listening to this in his head, and then the wife goes, "Do we have to listen to this at breakfast?"
I thought that was great.
And then he just gets up without saying a word in a huff and storms out like a
listens to it in his car.
listens to it in the car,
It's
cranked
great.
up like super loud,
It's great.
super loud.
And like he's it's Jim Carrey doing this, so it's like one half step away of the dial from just being fucking hilarious on purpose. You know?
Yeah. It's like watching him
smirk.
Walk a tightrope super wobbly.
I liked it when his buddy, his cop buddy says, in the thickest accent possible, he says, "You are too old school."
Yeah, there's so many lines that it's like you're off the case, Why are you still here digging around? The case is over. You're dead.
I kind of like the guy who's suspected of the crime.
The author.
He's an author.
His opening intro was great. But then he kind of played that one note too much.
It was pretty one note.
The opening press conference, I was like, oh wow, this is interesting. This is the nutrient. This is
He's
discovery.
the postmodern nihilist guy.
Kind of angry dude. He's the Catherine Trimble, Sharon Stone character. But he was good at first. But then I was like, oh man,
Catherine Tremmell.
Yeah, thank you.
I think Catherine Tremble's a better name. But there were some requests in the room for Charlotte Gainsbourg to show up. And
she was gone for a long time, for at least 30 or 40
show
minutes.
Up, she did. She plays the author's girlfriend with dark crimes of her own.
She was in rare form.
She was in rare form.
Fearless.
If
you think between movies she's resting, you are so wrong. She is fighting. She is looking.
She
looks
to
haggard.
prove herself as an artist. She's red down to scrap. She looked fierce.
She shows up and instantly, at least this is where my mind went. I'm like, do we get a sex scene with Polish Jim Carrey and Charlotte Gainsbourg? Do we get it? Is this movie gonna give it to us?
But there's a long road to that though, and it goes into that blue. It goes to this Blue Velvet phase, which at first this was the fake salad dragon scene where you think, oh, this is a salad dragon scene where Jim Carrey is the obsessed detective who's been kicked off the case and is on thin ice as it is. He's already been demoted, and if he solves this case, he gets his old job back supposedly. He breaks into the author's home, into the girlfriend's home, to find evidence to get his guilt because he's absolutely convinced
he's got a briefcase with a recording device in it.
And all of a sudden, Charlotte Gainsbourg comes home with the author boyfriend, and Jim's got to kind of hide. He's like, if he gets caught, his goose is cooked. It's supposed to be super suspenseful.
Yeah. I like this scene a lot.
And it was good. Yeah. It was good. And you think you just kind of have to sneak out, and then all of a sudden, the author and Gainsbourg start just having
aggressive,
9 Inch Nails closer, fuck me like an animal, rips their clothes off.
Reznor sex.
I mean, it's scrawny, scrappy, sweaty, just sharp, scratchy sex.
But Jim Carrey is in the foreground, out of focus the entire time. He
watching,
is eavesdropping.
And what's amazing about his performance is he's not reacting in a way. It could be he was just listening to a baseball game.
He's like a garden gnome.
Impenetrable. He's just but you're waiting for him to break character or smile or do the
But he gives some great voyeur looks. I want to know what was going on in his head to get those looks on his face.
But that was not the salad dragon scene. So at first I thought, okay,
by a country mile, that was not the salad dragon
it was not.
Scene.
So he somehow eludes capture from the breaking and entering and voyeuring. He gets out of there because they're so distracted.
But then he comes back later.
Comes back later. I mean, this is where it gets weird because
she reveals that she knew he was there watching them.
Well, no, she shows up to his house first while he's having a very quiet Polish dinner where no one's talking.
yeah.
And there's a there's a ring at the bell, and his wife's like, "I'll get it." He's like, "No, I'll get it." And she's like, "Someone's in my house. Someone's following me." And he's like, "I'll take you home. Don't worry."
He's desperately trying to get away from these austere dinners.
Yeah, and his poor tortured wife, his loyal wife, is like, "If you move 1 foot, I'm out." Or I mean, just completely.
Jim took one beat. He took one beat, and he took his jacket and he left.
And he left with Charlotte.
Some real Al Pacino Heat level shit.
Yeah.
And so wait, so you think this is all legitimate, reputable,
He's
police
just providing
work.
Transportation back to her apartment.
Takes her home. And can we just? I'm sorry to pause and back up. When he first meets Charlotte Gainsbourg, he's interviewing her. And she's got her daughter, and he's trying to ask her questions, and she's being coy with them. So he's just there's a beat where he looks at the daughter, and then looks at her and goes, Did he ever frighten you sexually? Like, sexually? Like, is he ever scary? And she was like, that's my daughter. You know, and she, like, scolds him, you know.
Like,
and he's
do
just
not
like,
ask those questions in front of my daughter.
He's playing hardball. Like, that's the kind of dogged, hardball detective he is. So then later when he, like, takes her and the daughter home.
Escorts her home.
The daughter goes to bed, and then he and her have this moment where she's like, I know you were here. And she starts taking her clothes off.
Uh-huh.
And
But we only see her back.
And this is like a little bit of LA Confidential. This is like the Russell Crowe, Kim Basinger. He's like, I'm not supposed to be here, and like this is jeopardizing the case. But I want you because I've been like listening to like this audiobook, and
He's
like,
in the world.
I'm interrogating your boyfriend who's confessed, or he says he's the guy who did it, and so
she shows him her scars on her back from all the dark crimes of the past.
And I thought he was just gonna maybe stroke the scars a little bit and then be like
and
then leave. I was like, come on, don't, Jim, go. And then
gotta do it, Jim.
boom,
Boom!
boom.
Oh, Steph just jumped up. They go at it. He's touching the scars, and I'm like, classy. He's just gonna stroke the scars and say they're there.
slow fade out.
Kiss
slow,
her on the
slow
forehead.
fade to black.
Kiss her on the forehead and dip.
Cue Polish violent.
His head changes, like he swoops his face down, and just you hear that beardy mouth just like sucking, and it is on. He is pounding away
like she's a glass of ice water in the desert sun. I mean, he is just spilling shit everywhere. I mean, it is so
and it cuts
ungentle.
To her. It cuts to her not looking like she's having a good time, and we all started yelling out, reverse shot, give us that reverse shot, because we know we're gonna be under that beard, we know we're gonna be looking up, we know we're gonna see what nobody was ever meant to see.
It was like a Key and Peele sketch all of a sudden.
It was like a Key and Peele sketch when we cut to him, and it is
full thrust, like full slap,
America's Funny Man. 1995,
going to town,
Going through the full
prison sex, like rough,
the full experience.
And right when you're at the brink, right when this
hitting her in the face.
It takes you to the edge. He starts smacking her with an open hand, but hard, but like as hard as you would a horse's ass, like just hitting her repeatedly. And at a certain point, she's looking at him like,
and then it stays on him through the entire Jim Carrey Orgasmic Experience. And you cannot unsee that. When the wind whispers Jim Carrey to me, that's what I'm gonna see.
That's gonna be a meme somewhere. There's so many memes.
So many memes. This movie should just like
is a meme machine.
They should strip it for memes.
Meme generating machine.
Strip it down and sell it for memes. They'd make so much
Strip
money.
mine that meme. Strip meme that mine.
So many that face web.
Oh my god.
There's a scene where he's like. He's kind of hunched down in his car, and the window's half rolled down, and he's creeping around, and it's hilarious looking. But then you remember what he's looking into, which is sexual depravity.
Yeah.
So they have this very dispassionate, passionate romance.
And then, but I think Jim gets like a little pickup in his step after the sex. He gets a little more.
He gets a little more motivated.
He gets a little more motivated to solve the crime.
It turns out that the lead investigator who initially handled this case was dirty, so they arrest him. But then his cop buddy reveals that he has been the mastermind all along and has been manipulating all of the events to ascend to power and become the police chief. So this brings us to the line, which is one of my favorite lines in the movie, where again, this is the same guy that called Jim Carrey old school. His line is, "I am the chief of police now. Fuck off, out of my sunshine." And then he puts on these tanning goggles and gets in a tanning bed.
It's like, could you imagine writing a scene and you're like, now typically this would be in an office. This would be like in the chief's office.
Let's move it.
But we've seen that. Like, and we can put it in a swimming pool where he's like swimming laps and the guy's walking alongside the pool. But we've seen that. Yeah. So where else could we put it?
Tanning
in
bed.
A tanning bed.
I was happy to be in a Polish tanning salon.
Well, it was the only
most color.
It was definitely the brightest.
Yeah,
for sure.
We also came up speaking of all this Polish, we also came up with a new like fake sex slang called the Polish polygraph. I don't know what that is or how to administer it.
It's something anally. It's something that goes up your butt, but it's not supposed to be in your butt.
Well, there you have it. We solved that.
But I honestly don't know what got Jim Carrey up off his couch to accept this offer to do this movie, because the bottom line is it's a Polish film that's based apparently on a true crime article in the New Yorker that and the movie says at the beginning inspired by true events.
Right,
and I need to fact check this shit because it sounds like bullshit. But
whenever
like,
anything is inspired by something, it's like I remember back when the first Mission Impossible movie came out with a soundtrack inspired by the motion picture.
Yeah.
That meant the songs weren't in the movie.
Yeah.
So,
that got me with the Fresh soundtrack. That definitely hurt.
Apply that to facts in a case, and it's looking a little shaky.
And with Jim Carrey's character, Tardek, his case, which he has been pursuing doggedly to convict this author who's written about, eventually the author confesses, and the author goes to jail, and Jim is like a happy camper. He's like packing out his desk. He's getting promoted.
Oh, hold on just a second. It's the lodge mistress taking out the trash.
Oh, God bless her.
The author confesses, and you think the movie's over. But it
Wrong.
is not. You were wrong.
Dark crimes.
Dark
crimes.
The dark crimes get more complicated.
More dark crimes lay ahead.
He realizes that the author couldn't have done it, and then the author explains his vague innocence or guilt by saying, "The river has an end, but it also has a beginning," which was pseudo-profound. And I looked over, and Lucas was staring blankly at his phone.
And then there's a very important beat where Jim gets a photo or like an envelope delivered, and when he looks at it, it triggers such a reaction, such a strong reaction that he runs to a bathroom and starts vomiting. Like it looked like legit, like he made himself vomit or whatever he had. He had a lot in his mouth.
What was that photo?
Well, they don't show us, but then it's revealed, right? Because then he cleans his mouth, he rinses his mouth, he wipes his beard off.
He's realizing that the author couldn't have done.
And then he realizes the author's innocent. The guy that they just convicted is innocent, and that's when he goes. That's when he goes to the tanning bed and tells the police chief, like, "We convicted the wrong man. It's not justice. Like, it's not justice."
And he says, "Fuck justice."
It's a bright story. It's a good story, black and white, good versus evil. Like everyone.
So
is happy.
Jim leaks some details to the news. The info gets out that the author couldn't have done the crime. So he's pseudo vindicated, but not really. And now the case is all up in the air. He goes and visits Gainsbourg, who's prepping for another sex dungeon sesh. And what happens? They cheers with some
vodka, some Polish Russian vodka. Like they take little salute shoots.
And he says Sadovsky like 900 more times, and he says, "I need to know what he did to you. I need to know what crimes he committed upon you." And then she launches into a very Gainsbourgian monologue about depravity and human suffering. And then we finally cut back to Jim, and we realize she's poisoned him.
Yeah, cut to the end credits. Boom.
End credits.
Boom.
Dark crimes.
And they killed his mom too.
Oh yeah, that was a big moment. There was two big moments. The first was the interrogation scene with the author, which was very Basic Instinct, very fast rhythm, fast pace, and that's when I started thinking of Tarantino and what he could have done with Jim in another lifetime. And then two, there's a lot of parallels to the Lynn Ramsey movie You Were Never Really Here with Joaquin Phoenix, because there's similar characters, but with the mom, Jim Carrey, he has this old.
He's caring for his elderly mom.
Yeah, I thought of that too.
She makes him promise.
Whose one wish is not to die alone, and
she dies alone.
They murder her. Yeah,
and then he goes into full dramatic Carrey breakdown.
Full breakdown.
Where you're looking at him, and you're like, where are you going? What is Jim Carrey, the human being, accessing to make this tragic of a sob face I mean, he goes there. He commits.
No, he does. He delivers, but it's just all sound and fury signifying nothing.
Yeah, he's not being supported by a compelling enough tale.
A good movie, no.
Unfortunately.
No, it's really sad because I feel like I said early on the director got lucky. It's like he didn't even know how to play baseball, and he swung it like a fastball and hit a home run, getting Jim Carrey to say yes to this script. I mean, seriously. Maybe it was the New Yorker article. Maybe that was it. He read the article and was like, oh my God, I can do this.
This is compelling.
And the director, the producer had the rights to it, and you got to do it in Poland, and you got to play it Polish, and that's the only way to work. And he thought it was even better challenge and thought he would just do it subtly, but after a while, it was like a weird, Flight of the Conchords character. Like he looked like a weird professor, like I am the doctor, like I am the professor, and we are going to go on a field trip today.
It's all very bizarre. It's almost unfathomable that it even exists, because you can't imagine somebody being like super excited to make this tale. You just can't.
I know, right?
In my humble
to get up
opinion.
every morning to
Bishki, let's go to the bones.
Let's go to the bones.
What are you thinking? You're a bit of a cipher on this one.
It was drab. It was Kozlowski meets Von Trier, but really down to the bone. No, Jim. I don't know. Jim was probably in a tough space. I think that this was filmed in 2016 and maybe 2015 even. Jim was going through a lot, and I think he was just like, "I'm broken. Let's do this."
Yeah.
That should be the tagline.
You were totally right.
And
I'm broken. Let's do this.
And that's what he gives it. And it's one bone.
One bone.
Or one bone for the salad dragon. One bone.
Solid.
Okay, it was a good one. It was
I
potent dragon.
will also throw my lot in with Bishki. I give it one bone for Jim Carrey's performance and for that salad dragon scene, and that's it. But like honestly, it really was a student film exercise. Like every scene felt like a student film, like right out of a student film.
I think every movie we've seen so far on this podcast has been accused of being a student film by Brother Lucas. And maybe that's just what the dragon that we're chasing. I thought it was competently made. I thought it was drab, but it looked interesting. It was definitely going for like some Fincher-esque, muted, cool color palette, and everything came to play but the story. Like the story just wasn't compelling. It wasn't. Maybe it's just because our wish for Jim Carrey walking through underground sex parties wasn't fulfilled.
Should have been the Polish Basic Instinct. Like, it really,
yeah, no, it's all it should have been. Yeah.
It should have been, but it just wasn't. It was stuck in
first gear. It really was kind of flat and inert. Like there's so much shoe leather and none of it's compelling.
None of it.
And it's like, who cares about this Spadowski guy or what? I forget. I can't. Sedadowski.
Sedadivsky.
Yeah, it was just like, who cares about this guy?
I would like to differ from you, gentlemen, but one bone is the rating for Dark Crimes. It's a one bone movie. It's
total boner. It's a total fumble.
One bone.
It's a poor use of film, script, sets, actors, studio vehicle.
It's like if you had this on in the background while you're folding laundry. When you start to hear the grunting and the skin slapping, then run into the room and catch the salad dragon scene, like there's some value there.
See, I think the movie could have worked exactly as it was if Jim was playing either American or if he was a more like manic junkie detective who was like taking pills to make him like, chatty or like weird.
Anything that would give it more energy.
Yeah, but for him to play it restrained, like he's fucking Harry Caul in the conversation, does not help it go down.
Dead on
like
arrival.
It's super dead. It's like a fucking fish getting dropped on your table.
But I am glad we saw this, if only to see kind of where Jim's at right now, to just see what his evolution is, and to see what he does next. Like,
what's Jim? How does he come off of this?
Dude, he needs to do another studio comedy, another Yes Man. Which I never saw. But
I don't think that's going to happen.
I think he needs to work with Eckhart Tolle and make the new age masterpiece that he's been talking about for so long.
I think that's probably the route he's going to go. Or he's going to start a cult. I might join. I might go to a meeting.
I would go.
Well, yeah, I would be interested, honestly.
Well, see, there you go. 3 out of 3 Lodgecasters agree. A Jim Carrey cult? Sign us up.
Count me in.
But I don't think you could pay me to see this movie again.
No. There's
Skip
nothing.
it.
There's nothing redeeming except the salad dragon scene.
That's Dark Crimes, guys.
Dark crimes.
We'll see if these movies get any darker on our Lodgecast. Who knows where we're going to go next. We're going to keep deep diving for you.
Deep, deep, deep.
Maybe one of these times we'll find a bright, shiny diamond in the rough.
Yeah, that rare, elusive four-bone Lodgecast movie.
It's gonna come. It's gonna come. I swear to God. Love and light.
Love and light.
Love and light to the Lord.
Love and light.
light to the Lord.
Love and light to the Lord.
Love and light to the Lord.
And only crimes of compassion.